Rudi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
All
you.
right, great. And where do we left off? We were in the middle of something.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, so blocks, the sort of core thing with Block for me has from the beginning to be to build a better customer experience on the real estate market, and I have from the beginning believed that that's attainable by using technology to create a sort of platform that takes care of all the sort of boring stuff in the background, and that enables people to sort of concentrate on helping people. And that's what we've sort of been building for the past sort of 3.5 years, or almost 4 years soon. Damn, time goes quickly. So quickly when you have fun, but for us, it really sort of started in January 2017, and I sort of put the team together. The sort of founding team was put together around my sort of people that I knew and had worked with at Slush. And I think for a sort of optimal founding team composition, I'd say that it's probably not the best idea in the world to get all of your best friends to sort of found a company with you, but maybe a combination of sort of people that you or your other co-founders have worked with in the past works best, and that sort of worked out really well for us, at least because we had worked together at Slush, so we sort of knew how we work and where our sort of maybe problems lie and where we're strong at, and that enabled us to sort of create this founding team where I don't think the founding team at Block has sort of really ever had any sort of proper fights. We've discussed matters, of course, and have maybe had different opinions on a few things, but we've all sort of had the same mission and goal from the beginning, which I think has made doing things quite easy for us. Yeah.
Considering that you have been in the Finnish or Nordic startup ecosystem for a long time, what kind of misconceptions about being a startup entrepreneur did get corrected while doing the work in Block that you're doing now? For other than do not necessarily start the company with your friends.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I think especially the background that I had from Slush and from Reactor Ventures sort of helped me quite a lot with the fact that I did know quite well, the pitfalls around, what you're going to do, and sort of was able to avoid most of them. Of course, there are still some mines that we sort of drove into, unfortunately. That always happens, and I mean those are maybe mainly around the sort of fundraising part of things. I sort of consider myself somewhat an expert on that field, but it's still even with that, it's not super easy to raise funding, and that might be one of those things that might become a bit surprising. It's always very easy to raise your first round or your second round, but when you sort of get up to these sort of bigger A, B round sort of things, that's where things usually get a bit tricky, a bit trickier than what they are in the beginning.
Yeah, and about that funding part, in what kind of size were you when you went to get your first round of money?
We did a pre-seed investment basically in the company before we even had founded the company, or right around the time when we founded the company. So the first sort of round of funding that we raised was completely based on the founding team and based on the idea. We had absolutely nothing to show for it, and that was a very sort of small sum of money that basically enabled us to quit our jobs and enabled us to sort of pay a small, very small salary for ourselves for the first. I think we were aiming at the first 8 months, and that's pretty much exactly how long the money lasted, and then we took in another sort of smaller angel round after that.
All right. In what point which was the year when you were like, okay, now I've done something great here? Can you point out a specific time?
I can point out the specific time, and that was it sort of started in the autumn of 2017, sort of the year we founded the company. That's when we sort of started seeing that things sort of started picking up. We saw more and more sort of people coming in on their own. We saw more people coming in through friend recommendations and so on. And then it sort of exploded in 2018. So from 2017 to 2018, we basically sold. We basically onboarded and sold 10 times more apartments in 2018 than what we did in 2017. So we basically grew 10x between those years. So that's really where it sort of took off, was sort of end of 2017, beginning of 2018, and then it just sort of kept growing from there.
All right. There is this concept of MVP, also known as minimum viable product. Would you consider that your product, the blog, was it something like that, or was it taken a little bit further?
No, it most definitely was. What we actually did was that we actually built a half of an MVP almost, if you want to call it that, before we did anything else. So what we did was that we actually took one part of the product and built that first and launched that first, and that was the valuation algorithm itself. So because we basically do everything with computers, we also evaluate apartments with computers. And the valuation algorithm we built in the first version, we built in a month. We put it out on the market to just sort of see if there's any interest in, a new player in sort of doing something different in the market, if we can sort of capture some sort of interest around that. And I think we were aiming at something like 1,000 valuations in the first month or so. And I think we got something like 4,000 valuations in the first week. So it showed us that, okay, we might be onto something, at least with this. And we spent another month building the actual sort of product itself, or an MVP version of the product itself, and then launched that a month later. And that's really we really did because we wanted to just get something out on the market so that we could get feedback really quickly on if we're onto something or if we're not really maybe just yet onto something.
Yeah,
so we really sort of launched very, very quickly.
As a conclusion, you could say that from your experience, at least, building an MVP and just going with the idea is not a bad way to go.
No, it's definitely a good idea. But what's really, really important with an MVP is that it has to look ready towards the customer. So that, of course, sort of varies between products. I mean, you can't launch a game that doesn't really work. But for us, what we sort of needed to build were the customer-facing parts of the product, which meant that we, basically had to do online signatures, automated documents and documentation, and a few other things like onboarding wizards and those sort of things. That's what we built in a month. But everything in the background was basically non-existent. There wasn't any automation in the background really, so we did everything manually. But that enabled us to build a product that looked really pretty and seemed like it was automatic towards the customer. So the product itself looked ready towards the customer, but it wasn't really ready in the background.
I want to ask some questions about the role of the CEO itself, because there are a lot of startup founders in there, watching of hopefully future startup founders there, who at some point have to come to the realization that they have to build an organization culture in the startup. So my question would be that how important do you think it is to build the culture, the company culture, from their very early stages, from the get-go? How important is that? And then what steps have you taken to build this culture in the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, of course, always sort of talks about the culture, but to be honest, I think in early stage companies, it really often is built around the sort of personality of the either the CEO or the founding team, or the sort of culture that they have with us. So I'd say that we sort of brought on board the sort of slush culture quite inherently. We didn't sort of plan on it, or we planned on it, but we didn't sort of actively do anything sort of towards it. And I'd say that sort of culture as something that sort of needs to be written down and needs to sort of really be communicated sort of happens somewhere around maybe 20 employees or so, or 20, 25, 30 employees. Somewhere it probably varies between companies. That's when you sort of really need to start writing things down and sort of making clear that everybody understands the culture inherently. There are also examples of companies that can sort of build a culture very inherently around, short stories, 1 or 2 sentences, which sort of really describe what the company is about and what we're about. I personally sort of try to build the company at Block around showing examples. So sort of doing as I want everybody else to do. So for example, on our customer service, for example, I still answer chat messages on our customer service because I want to make clear to everybody that customer service and customer experience is sort of the number 1 priority here. And I answer chats pretty much from when I wake up to when I go to sleep. I don't, of course, do that all the time, but whenever I sort of have a free moment and I see that, there's a chat waiting to be answered, I take it and I answer it. And I also sort of, everything that I sort of write in the chat or, answer emails or whatever, I use them as examples to show what's the tone of voice that I want, us as a company to be using towards customers. And that's maybe how I see it. It's maybe, at least for me, that's the most natural way of sort of deploying the culture.
All right, thank you. I think we have running out of time but this is not by the minute. So probably many of our viewers would like to have some motivation talk to the end. So if you can give some motivation to aspiring entrepreneurs who have an idea, but it's just in their heads, and as we all know, that's just not enough.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, and I hope that I don't not destroy anyone's dreams, but I mean, running a startup, as you guys know, it is hard. It's not going to be a dancing on the roses, right, for anyone. And I for that reason, I wouldn't recommend founding a startup to anyone that's sort of inherently a very sort of stressful or scared person. I'd say that you're going to end up, with a stomach ulcer or something like that in less than a year if you're inherently sort of a stressful personality. Or if you have that, you need to at least get your co-founder to be a very, very sort of chill and laid back person, so that there's someone that has that sort of a control of the situation at all times, because there are going to be a lot of ups and downs. On the other hand, of course, the fun thing about it is that when you sort of do, hit that sort of nail on the head and things go right, the feeling that you get is magical, and I don't think you can really get that anywhere else than in your own startup. And that's sort of something that I sort of strive for. I also see that I've sort of gotten hooked to it in a way. So it's like a drug now that sort of I need to get every now and then, so that you sort of have a motivation to keep going. I'd say that we're now closing in on 4 years, and I still haven't had sort of any moments where I would have sort of regretted the decision that I've done to found a company. So I don't think that there aren't that many risks to founding a company, and there aren't that many things to be scared of. Especially in Finland, you're so secure that even if things go really badly belly up, you're still going to be, someone's still going to employ you. You're still going to be getting governmental support in terms of money on the bank. You won't become homeless. Those sort of things won't happen. So it's a risk worth taking, but you should sort of need to be a realist on what you're getting yourself into. It has fun parts and it has hard parts. For the most parts, it's fun, but the hard parts are hard. But yeah, best decision ever. Recommend it.
All right, best decision ever, like a drug. Rudi.
Yeah, it's a drug.
Yeah. Thank you for this interview.
Yes.
No worries.
Thank you on my part. Unfortunately, we had some technical issues at the beginning now, but now they are solved. So huge thanks to Rudi for being patient in there with your time
No worries.
and everything. I hope everyone got something out of this interview. It was a short but really concise and straight to the point. That kind of stuff.
Exactly. If someone has any sort of questions or issues or whatever, you're free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email or whatever. I'm always happy to help out when I get a moment to do that.
All right.
That's great to hear.
We will pass that on.
Did we get any questions right now in the chat?
No questions from the chat.
Apparently not.
All right.
Great.
Well, it's good that you're available there.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, thanks a lot. And next we will have Jussi Palola from Virta. And now I think that we will have a short break. See ya.